Hello and welcome to LCTV special Lynn Lowdown election coverage. And today we have a special guest with us running for U.S. Senate, Mr. Kevin O'Connor. How are you doing, sir?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. It's fall. The weather is still up and down, but hey, can't complain about anything. So, looking forward to this discussion we're gonna have with you. But first, before we get started, can you just introduce everybody and what you're running on?
Yes, hi, and thank you so much for having me. And hello to everyone. So I'm a dad. I have 4 kids. I'm a husband. I've been a small business owner, and I've been a lawyer for the last 30 years. I went to BC Law, and I'm really running a common sense campaign. Basically, I think all Americans want a safe neighborhood, a good job, and then the opportunity to unite around common sense and basic American values. And so it's nothing fancy. It's a citizen-run campaign, and taking on the career politicians and the entrenched interests.
All right. Yeah. So this is not an easy thing to do, but you're doing it. But can you just tell me what made you decide to make a run at it? What made you decide to go for it?
I'm worried about our country. So I have 4 kids, and my youngest is in 4th grade. I have an 8th grader. All my kids have gone through public school, and I just am worried about our country. I'm worried about the directions that I think our senator wants to take us in, which I just think is completely wrong. But I also I want to make sure that we have positive voices in the political arena and people who are focused on uniting us, and that isn't, it's not a pillow fight. So you got to be tough, and you got to stand up for what you believe in. But I want to make sure that that's done in a professional manner, and I think that's really important for our children, my children to see, all of our children to see. And so I looked around, saw who was running, and thought I think I can beat him, and I think it's important to stand up for the basic principles.
What are some things that your opponent what are some things that you disagree with your opponent on that has you so concerned?
Well, I start with it just right now is the defunding the police. Ed Markey's been in Congress for 44 years, and he's done essentially nothing on issues of racial justice. He was voted for the crime bill in 1994. He's been an absentee landlord, in my view, and totally ineffective. And now, suddenly in 2020, he wants to defund our police, which I think is completely out of line with what people want. The only way we keep our neighborhoods safe is to have good policing. I've been an attorney for 30 years. I love the Constitution, including equal protection and due process. I represented a wrongfully convicted man who spent 20 years in jail for crimes he didn't commit. And so I know the law, when you stand up, can be done right. And I want to make sure that happens. And I think Senator Markey has just been completely neglectful for 44 years. He's gotten nothing done. And now, which in a way that's typical of people that ignore a problem and then come up with hasty, bad solutions. Now he wants to defund the police and disarm the police, and he's vilifying the police. And it's just not appropriate. It's bad for our communities.
If you're elected, what would you do to ease tensions or better relationships between the police department and the communities that they serve? What would you do to better that relationship with police and the people in the community?
Well, we didn't get here overnight. We're not going to get out of everything overnight. So it's a long-term, sustained commitment. I was the first diversity and inclusion coordinator for what was the largest law firm in Boston more than 20 years ago. So I've been working on issues of diversity and inclusion for more than 20 years. And what I would do is just start with the hard work. I think we need to emphasize community policing, training, de-escalation, mental health support, not only for people that the officers visit, but for the officers themselves. We have really severe depression and anxiety issues within law enforcement, and we all know when mental health issues go untreated, then adverse consequences happen. People act out, and so our law enforcement right now, which in Massachusetts they do a pretty good job. They've been like the chief in Boston, been a leader on community policing, and which I think is critical, and wellness training and all. But that's where the answers lie. It's not less policing. It's smarter, better policing, engagement. Everybody's got to have a seat at the table to figure out how we go forward and do things as well as possible.
Yeah. To piggyback off that, it's now, we've had this pandemic for, since March, and you touched on, the housing a little bit. You talked about that a little bit as far as landlord and stuff. So this pandemic hit, and we're seeing a wave of people from March until, we're about to be October. Rent is about to be due October 1st, first of the month. So how are you going to be able to help those that are going through this tough times because we know rent is getting out of control. There's rent control happening. People have been protests about the amount of rent that people have had to pay. So just how are you going to be able to just help those who have gone through this process and have gone through this struggle for the past 6 months? Like what can you do and to help those?
Yeah, so I've represented tenants in housing court against landlords. So I was named the attorney of the year by the Massachusetts Tenants Association because they got the worst slumlord in Boston placed under house arrest in one of his own unheated units in the middle of the winter. So in terms of housing issues, we need to build more housing. We're not building enough housing. That's driving the prices up in communities like Lynn. So there are a lot of long-term issues. We need federal support. I'll be better at getting federal support. It would be much better served with a Republican senator and a Democratic senator in Washington advocating for our communities. And then we got to work out this issue with we've had a freeze on rent. And most landlords are people who saved up and bought a house, and they may have a multifamily unit or something, and they're hurting too. So the real answer, we've got to get interim support, and the real answer is we have to open up safely, but as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. And so I got 4 kids. 2 of them are still home in public schools, and I want to open up safely as soon as possible for people that are if you're a teamster, or if you work in the hospitality industry, waiter, busboy, dishwasher, you're out of work. It's brutal. It's brutal, and that is just so hard on people. Even if you give them the money, just from a mental health perspective, it's tough when you're not able to get out and to work. So I want to promote working as soon as possible. I want to make sure that we have the flow of aid, but we can't be paying too much, because we got to give people incentives to get back to work and to open up.
Yeah, and also there's also, with a lot of developments happening in certain neighborhoods, we're seeing more and more condos, more and more luxury apartments being built, and in those high luxury apartments and condos, they don't have an affordable housing unit on it. How can we get more of these companies that build these high luxury buildings to have affordable housing units in the buildings or in the units, so they don't take out the people who make the communities what it is? Because we're seeing a lot of that when they come, the people that live there, they can't afford it, and then they have to move out, and you see that the shape of that community being, kind of dissolving.
Totally. We see it over and over. It's terrible, right? These are great communities, and you don't want to lose the character and the identity.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a federal support component. It's incumbent on the local communities to say, hey, we don't want to lose our name. It's great to have a shiny new building, but we got to promote building of more housing. We got to make it easier to build more housing. That'll keep the prices down. And then we got to make sure that there's affordable housing available. A neighborhood should not be radically changed and altered. You can do development and preserve the character of a neighborhood. And once we lose the character, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Never comes back, right? So you don't want that happening. We want Lynn to be Lynn.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
Definitely. And you talked about mental health and getting more stuff for mental health. Also, another thing that can cause or lead to mental health is drug abuse.
Yes.
How in the North Shore we've had issues with opioid. It's gotten better. There's a lot of organizations, a lot of programs that are in place to help those that are fighting those demons. Just how can the state overall, what can the state do to overall improve the battle against opioids? Drug abuse in general, not only.
Yeah. Well, the mental health component is a chicken egg situation, in my experience. I have a cousin whose life has been ravaged by opioid addiction, so it's hit my family. But a lot of what leads to addiction, what I see sort of two components. One is mental health. It's anxiety, depression, that type of thing. Some of it's choices. Obviously, we have to empower people to make the right decisions, educate them, give them hope, strong schools, good jobs, safe neighborhoods, and then the federal government has to be. We need federal funds, and I really believe that a Republican senator and a Democratic senator, where we have coverage on both sides of the aisle, that is the way that's proven to make sure that Massachusetts gets its fair share. Right now, Massachusetts pays more in taxes to the federal government as a percentage of tax revenue than it gets back. And we need, Senator Markey's been there 44 years. He doesn't have juice. He's got no juice. He's not delivering the goods. And I can change that overnight. We will have a voice on both sides of the aisle.
All right, just got a few more minutes left. Can you, and just lastly, what is one big change if elected that you would hope that you are going to bring?
Oh, I'm going to bring a whole mindset of working with people. Senator Markey, as I said, he's the proverbial absentee landlord. He goes off to Washington. He comes back every 6 years. I'm going to be a total tone changer. I'm going to be the hardest working senator we've ever had. I'm going to be back in the communities. I love Massachusetts. I'm going to Washington because I love Massachusetts and to give us a voice. And I know 30 years I've been a lawyer and I've been a strong advocate for my clients. And the only way to effectively advocate for your clients is to know them, to know who they are, build relationships so that you understand each other and you can give them voice. I'll be the better advocate than Ed Markey. I promise you. You'll have a full court press for 6 years.
Mm-hmm. And can you just let everybody know if they wanna reach out to you, if they wanna contact you, just let them know where they can go, and we'll just let them know where they can go.
Sure. My website is KOC for Senate. K as in Kevin, OC, FOR Senate.com. And you can go there, and then you can also email Kevin at KOCforSenate.com.
All right. Kevin, thank you so much for taking the time to join me, man. This was very appreciated.
Oh, I really appreciate it. Thanks. Have a great day.
You too. All right, you guys have been watching LCTV News, Lynn Lowdown Election Special. This is Kevin O'Connor running for U.S. Senate. I've been your host, Mukala Kabongo. Have a great day, ladies and gentlemen.